Amy?
Yes, I am.
Mom!
Hi.
Happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day. Thanks.
You're looking great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
I don't, everybody out there, what I think's important is that my mom is somebody who completely has been a mentor and an influencer in my life. And in many cases, I didn't even know that she was influencing me by just her actions. And so I wanted to bring her on and just have a conversation about what it is. Here's my question for you, Mom.
Mm.
How do you manage somebody, and how do you deal with someone like me if we go back and I'm a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 17-year-old? How do you manage someone who's got an entrepreneurial side, highly creative, very independent? How did you do that? And what would you recommend to anybody out there who's watching who might have a child like me?
Well, to keep you interested in something. If you're not interested in something, you're in trouble, getting in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So it was always a challenge to find something that would interest you at all times. And a lot of it was artwork, painting, drawing, coloring, building something, that kind of thing. Worked pretty well.
Challenging me?
No, yes. In fact, it did challenge you to do other things, because when you started with one thing, it always led to more ideas that you would have.
Mom, since I've have an 18-month-old now, and it took me a number of years for that to materialize. I have a newfound respect for you, and a realization of how. And I'm already 18 months, so it's just I'm wondering. So for how do you keep patience? How did you maintain patience through those moments where it's just not a very pleasant moment?
Well, I'm still working on that. It's a difficult thing,
Mm-hmm.
because you want them to do one thing or to stop something, and you have to sort of take control of the situation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, it depends on your personality and how you want to handle a child. You personally had temper tantrums.
What? I still do, Mom.
And I know you now know what those are. And it was difficult. We tried a lot of different things. I couldn't even tell you. And eventually it came down to, do you want time out, or do you want to color a book, read a book, do some artwork, build something to get your mind distracted? Distraction is a wonderful thing.
We have a question, Mom. I have a question. How do you manage an extremely creative team? Any advices for moms of teens?
Well, they're children, and it goes back to, I think, when they're creative, you just provide the opportunity for them to do many things, and teens have an interest in something, and whatever they're interested in, go with it, and they will stay interested.
I mean, I wouldn't want to grow up a teen today, Mom. And so,
No.
and I think that there's a lot with social media. There's a lot of pressure to perform. Parents. One of the things I noticed, parents have project what they want their children to become and do in their
Yeah.
lives. It would be natural for me to project Zane as an entrepreneur, of course. Seema and I have consciously made a decision to work to not project as best as possible onto Zane what we might want, and let him do what he wants to do or follow his passion as best as possible. What are your thoughts around this in terms of like a teenager
Well,
doesn't necessarily know what doesn't have enough life experience to be able to make the best decisions, but there's clearly a passion or something that's theirs that's unique. And how do you continue to support that? And even when it's not necessarily what you as a parent might want that child to do. I'll pause there.
Well, Dad and I had quite a bit of experience trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. That's you.
You talking about me?
It didn't work. And because you had your own ideas. And so we let you call it kind of more like follow your own ideas as long as it was, reasonable and we could afford it. And it was safe. Um, and you'll recall you had a lot of ideas that, we went along with. And that's how we did. It's because if you have a creative child, you can't uncreate them. I mean, they don't become uncreative. No matter what you think, you can't do it because it's inside them to be that way.
Mom, I was removed from a number of schools. I used to say 12 by the time I was a sophomore. I know it may not
I
be
think it
that
was
many. I know, but it's a large number
it's a large.
from a very small age where I was removed from schools,
Yes.
and that had to be hard on you. And of course, much of that I was clueless as I look back on it. It's like I can sort of remember, but it seemed to be the reason I bring this up is it seemed to be a self-preservation tool of mine as I reflect now. Where if I was in an environment that wasn't a safe environment for me, or I didn't like the environment, I'd find a way to get removed from that environment so that I could be in a different environment, which would be better. And if it wasn't, I'd find a way to get out of that environment and remove from that potentially. Like I'm thinking it's like a safety mechanism I had when I was younger. What, like, I'm sure there's a lot of kids out there that are entrepreneurial, that are creative, who are getting removed from schools, or how did you manage that? And how was that, like, how did you manage that?
Well, it was a learning process. I tried to work with the schools, and it worked pretty well some of the time. And then they would decide they could no longer work with you. So we'd off to the next school. And there was a lot of negotiation with the schools because their idea of where they wanted to put you and where I thought would be a better spot. There was no perfect, good, spot for you.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a lot of, it was a lot of,
Still might be true. Maybe it's this internet channel we have here.
yeah. And so, and you spent a lot of time getting kicked out of school and coming home, and you were never, upset about it. It made you feel better to get away, I guess. And so for me, it was working with the schools and trying to keep you out of um, other places. And
like jail, Mom? You could just say it.
Juvenile justice system.
Juvenile justice. Yeah, we don't want to go there.
No, you weren't going to go there.
No, I wasn't built for that for sure. First of all, thank you so much for fighting for me. I love you tremendously, and I know that was something I learned from during that time. So in other words, through just osmosis and your fighting and being with Maria McKeever and other women who were fighting for kids who were like me, that somehow that fight and that advocacy and that determination it got in me, right? Because I was part of that. You dragged me around, right?
I did. Because you were.
I think that it also influenced me to have this massive appreciation for women and empowering women, because somehow through that I was like, around women more, and I saw how women behave, and I wasn't really around men in the same way. There has to be some linkage, I think, to that as well, that relates to the We Create centers that we have in Zambia, Vietnam, and Kenya, and then all the work we've done around the world. And so somehow I think there's some linkage to that, Mom.
Very possibly, because all that's true. You did spend a lot of time with me and during school hours, and
That's because I got kicked out of school.
that's right. And then we did have a lot of meetings, and we started a group to help people with similar children. And you went to a lot of those meetings because one more time you were with me during, school hours. And so it benefited me greatly also, Sean, um, because it made me a stronger person. Nobody was going to trample on my son. I don't care what they said. And so it made me stronger in that way. And I learned to negotiate very fast because you really don't get much of a second chance sometimes with schools. And it benefited me in my career. I mean, I'm an expert negotiator. I'm here to tell you. And I wouldn't be that if it weren't for you.
So what you're saying, Mom, is if you want to be a really phenomenal negotiator, raise a creative child who gets kicked out of schools, and then you'll be able to like negotiate better.
I think so.
You heard it here first, everybody. That's I'm really glad that some positive came out for you, because I can only imagine how much stress and
It was stressful.
difficulty that must have been.
But looking back, it wasn't that bad. It could have been a lot worse. Trust me. There were kids out there that it was a lot worse. So I think it came out the way it was supposed to.
Well, so one of the ways that you have been really instrumental in my life is through, and I've got sketchbooks, Mom, that go back to when I was like 9 and 10 years old. And guess what? Inside those sketchbooks, affirmations. Affirmations are in those sketchbooks. My signature looks the same as well, but but there are affirmations in there, and I'm 9 years old. That had to come from you.
Yeah, I had them posted all over the place.
Talk to us about affirmations and the power of affirmations.
Well, they are powerful because all of us have a lot going on in our heads. And sometimes we get locked in there that we can't do something and or don't want to, whatever. And if you have an affirmation, is just words that say what you want it to be, and put them on a sticky note, stick them on your mirror, stick them on your phone, stick them on your computers, stick them on the refrigerator door, everywhere. And then you read them, and you can visualize what it is that you desire to happen to be, and over time your mind changes to say, I'm brave enough to take on this challenge. The fear starts diminishing, and the thing of it is, our brains are kind of lazy. They like us in our comfort zone because the brain doesn't have to work very hard. It just kind of gets up and goes la 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 all day because you're in your comfort zone. So they fight you to keep you there. And that's what's all that stuff going on in your head is work trying to work to keep you where it's easy for your brain. They don't want to think. I mean, good, they're lazy.
But it's a way to reprogram your brain. Like you can change your behavior through affirmations.
Absolutely.
And achieve and create things in your life through the process of believing. It's not just saying it. You have to believe it, right? It's an emotional thing that connects, and you feel it, that it's real. Talk to us about that.
Well, it started with a gentleman named Napoleon Hill back in the 1920s. He wrote a book, Think and Grow Rich, which of course became, a popular book. And in there, he says, if you can think it and if you can see it, you can attain it. And he was the first one to really put together how this works. It will change your mind to believe that you can do something, and or that it'll be easy, like money flows to me easily and effortlessly. It
Give us
doesn't.
give us a money affirmation, Mom. That's a good one. Got another one?
Yeah, financial well-being is my new reality. Money flows to me easily,
Mm.
and each person can write their own, and it has some specific guidelines. Needs to be brief, very specific, in the present tense, so now you don't base it in the past, and it has to be positive. So you wouldn't make something that says, I am not going to whatever. You would say, I am doing whatever. So it has to be positive movement, not negative.
So it's proactive. I am going to do this. I am doing this. This is happening. So
Yeah.
it's projecting. It's kind of a reality distortion technique as well.
No, it's not distortion.
Sure, you're changing the reality to what you want it to be.
Well, if you want to call it a distortion, I wouldn't call it that, but it's just,
It has a little bit. It has a little bit. I mean, reality distortion is also getting people to do things that they normally wouldn't do, and that we'll have a conversation about reality distortion as an exercise later. But the affirmations touch on it a little bit. The affirmation is such that, do you like to get into a quiet space when you say the affirmation, or on the fly? Because you literally do post these affirmations all over the house, so they're everywhere. I remember.
no, it can be anywhere. I mean, probably to meditate on it is a good idea, or to, quietly think about it. But for me, I was a busy person, 2 children and working, and there wasn't a lot of time to sit around. And so they were in my car, they were on the sun visor, they were on the dash, they were everywhere,
Yeah.
literally.
You were literally on your sun visor. I recall this now. So the create your and we've got a few affirmations we're going to share that you put together, Mom. So and this is great because I think some people we've had a lot of requests actually for the money affirmations, Mom.
Yes.
This one's for you, V Dub. And so now, what if my affirmation? Let's say my affirmation is like these folks. I was just talking to Ha from Vietnam. Were you watching that?
Yes.
What affirmation would you give her? She's in a really interesting situation. What kind of affirmation would you give Ha?
So, from what I understand, she started a company to make the test for COVID-19.
They have kits, and the business is in developing kits to test for viruses. Yes,
Okay.
it just happens that COVID-19 came along.
Okay. Well, what would be good for her is to say that what she needs is orders.
Yes.
So that orders are coming to her easily and effortlessly on a daily basis.
And the material, because she has a challenge getting a hold of that material. The special material that is the secret ingredient as well is something else to include in that affirmation. Can you redo that affirmation to
Well,
include that really rare material?
Well, they're brief. So
Yeah.
that would be a second one, maybe.
Ah, okay, great.
Yeah. So the same thing.
Give it to me again. Second one. What does it look like?
So I'll just call it material. The material necessary to make her product. This is going to be too long, I think. Product is easily purchased and available to her
Whenever she wants it.
now. You can say
Now. That's beautiful. So anything, you can make an affirmation for literally for anything.
yeah. As long as it's positive.
That is so beautiful.
You wouldn't make an affirmation that it's too difficult to get the material that I need to do my kits, and so and so. That wouldn't work. It's got to just be positive from the start.
Well, this is an interesting question, Mother. If your mind is like, this is hard, this is not going to work, we're never going to get this material, is that a reverse affirmation you're telling yourself, and that is actually working against you? Because it's like an affirmation if you're actually saying it won't work.
You believe it. Yes, it is. So you have to replace. That's why I'm saying your brain is lazy. It wants you to stay where you are because it's easy for the brain. It doesn't have to get up early and work and think. Brains are like that, and they feed you all the ways that you can't do things or you don't want to do them. Want you to think you don't want to do it, and so that's what you're trying to alter, is to get to the point of what you do want and get your brain to recognize, I'm going to have to go to work and make this happen.
The brain is lazy and follows a certain track that's the easiest and least resistant. And so why people, it's rare for people to overcome and even follow through with affirmations, because it takes effort and work, and the brain, you got to retrain your brain.
Yeah, the brain doesn't want you to do that.
Mm-hmm. Brain lazy.
And everyone listening notices all that goes on in your head, that how hard it's going to be. You can't do it. You're not going to find that. It's not a good idea. All kinds of, stuff.
Exercise your brain, everybody. Yeah. Okay. So, and one of the most effective ways to do that, that's my terrible brain. Looks more like a bubble gum.
Kind of looks like it.
Yeah, well, it sort of has that. My hands. It's. You don't have to draw perfectly, but you can see what that is, everybody. And what that means is one of the most effective ways to exercise your brain's affirmation. It reprograms the brain. When you say you can't, when you say it won't work, or that'll never happen, you actually are programming your brain to make that real and make that a reality. Shift it. Make it about, it will happen. I'm going to do this. It's going to take place. And one of the ways to do that, as we've heard today, exercise your brain, affirmations. It's beautiful, Mom.
Thank you.
Well, what's your plans for the rest of today? Since it's Mother's Day, what's Dad doing for you?
Well, we are still confined here in California till the end of May. So we're at home, and Dad's going to cook me a special dinner. And I think we're going to bake some bread.
Great.
Yeah. So that's kind of what you have to do. We had a little outing yesterday, and which.
Well, you're looking great, Mom. And just so everybody knows, my mother, it looks like, was one of the early victims of the COVID-19 and was isolated in a hospital, and really it was touch and go. And so just to see you here is wonderful, Mom. I love you very much. And
I love you, babe.
Thanks for being here. And we'll see you next Sunday on Insights with Sean's mom.
All right. Have an awesome day.
You too, Mom. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.